Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about work done in Julia Michel's group with the PhD student Antonia and our collaborative biology in Markov on looking at catalytic activity in cyclophilin. Okay. All right. So. In particular, the Michel group is interested in actually exploiting cyclophilin as a drug target, and we're kind of working on this in different avenues. Why are we doing this? Cyclophilin is an interesting drug target because, in particular, its functionality in what viruses can do with it. It can viruses will hijack cyclophilin and use it in the virus capsids. So if we can stop that from happening, that's great. Cyclophilin is also an enzyme and actually catalyzes the cis-trans isomerization of proline. And there is an available drug out there, cyclosporin, but the problem with it is that actually there are 17 different isoforms of cyclophilin, and cyclosporin is not isoform selective. So what we're particularly interested in is trying to specifically target cyclophilin A by trying to explore loop motions of this 100s and 70s loop. And this is not what I'm talking about, but because of work we've been doing here, this entire project I'm talking about kind of came out of it. And therefore I'm actually going to do a little excursion into what is sort of experimentally out there on cyclophilin A. So there's a bunch of NMR measurements that date back to the early 2000s, done by Eisenmesser and al., where they basically managed to distinguish two groups of motions in cyclophilin, which are slow motions and slower motions. And in particular, there's a bunch of residues that belong to a group 1 and another bunch of residues that belong to a group 2 that exchange at hundreds per second to thousands per second rates and slightly faster motion. And these group 2 motions are actually what Jordi's going to talk about in his next talk and what kind of prompted this work here. And in fact, we're kind of looking at the group 1 motion without really trying to achieve these timescales. But essentially what the experimentalists hypothesized that this millisecond motion of this major to minor conformation involving these group 1 residues occurs at the same time as catalysis, so they might be related. In order to test this, they looked at crystal structures, and what they found is that this phenylalanine 113 actually takes 2 rotameric state, the plus 60 and minus 60 rotameric state, and I thought, well, if we design a mutant that kind of pushes this rotameric state to phenylalanine in this minus 60 conformation, what will happen to the catalysis? So they designed this S2T mutant, and indeed what they observed is that it only occupies this minus 60 rotameric state. And it's quite interesting, the mutation is actually a allosteric site because it is quite far away from the catalytic activity 55. So then they actually measured the effect of this mutation, and indeed there's a 60-fold reduction in the speed of process 1 motion, so these residue 1s, a group of 1 residues, and a 70-fold reduction in catalytic activity. And then earlier this year, another paper was published in Nature Communications by Otten and al., where they designed a further set of mutants that partially actually recover this catalytic activity. So the reason why we got interested in actually trying to assess this catalytic activity is because in Jordi's simulations we saw a lot of movement of this phenylalanine 113. So we wanted to investigate that a bit further. So we started by looking at the apoprotein and just generated 200 nanoseconds data for the 4 mutants, and then we did a very simple MSM analysis of looking basically at a bunch of side chains. But before we even go into the MSM analysis, what we see is a lot of transition of this phenylalanine here. So this is a single trajectory chase, and yes, it flips up and down quite a lot. But what happens with the mutant also happens. And the same is for all the other mutants. Also, it's quite nice that you just look at this trajectory chase, but wouldn't it not be better if we could quantify this a little bit numerically, as in how fast these transitions occur? So we built a Markov model. And also the last thing about Markov table gives you information about safety probabilities, but also kinetics. So first of all, we looked at the populations of these two dynamic states as weighted by Markov tables on the mathematic state and the plasticity state. We compared that to the X-ray occupancy found in the experimental data, and the molecule was sort of constructed on a set of side chains that mainly belong to these dribble residues. So we covered the crystal occupancy quite well with our simulations, and this is sort of the dynamic information we get. Here I'm only showing one type of this S19, and these exchanges between these states that are much faster as what the environment would suggest. And this is also because obviously we're looking at a time scale that's much faster. Our simulations are not long enough to actually look at these long time scales. But basically the point here is that even short simulations do see this exchange. So then we wanted to see how that would potentially relate to kinetic activity. So designing a rat sampling study where we took this peptide AAPF with this protein residue here and biased this omega angle in order to see how the catalysis works. Here's some simulation information we did at one analysis for the umbrella sampling. And the nice thing we tried to do is that, okay, we start in this plus 60 degree rotary conformation of this phenylalanine and put the substrate in there and then running a biochemical simulation where we get a nice improved catalysis over the AAPF in solution. However, if we do the same thing and force this type 1 of phenylalanine converting into this minus 60 population, actually we don't get any improved catalysis at all. So what is actually going on? Why is this plasticity state so much better? Well, this is electrostatic stabilization. So now zooming in at the transition state region, and we get a massive stabilization through arsenic 55, whereas if we do look at the same things in the minus 60 simulations, stabilization is gone. We wanted to further look at hydrogen bonding networks. So again, transition states for these two different simulations. In this case, again, looking at wild type and strong mutant. We have 6 hydrogen bonds with high probability in this transition state. If we look at these simulations, whereas this is completely broken in minus 60 degree state simulations. So this kind of leads us to proposing a slightly different model of catalysis than done with experimentalists. So basically, they look at isomerization, so these rates of wild type and the mutant, they can define a ratio between them, and this is sort of what the experimental paper of 2009 suggests. Using our MSM data for population of states and transition theory from umbrella sampling, we can kind of massage our data in a very simplistic way to actually match this ratio of rates. And we believe the reason how the catalysis works is actually because the substrate cannot bind well to this minus 60 population. So as long as there's a fast interchange between these two states,